Hello and welcome to the Aquitaine Ocean project series, in which we will be building a beautiful, eco-friendly, modern city just off the coast of the Atlantic in southwest France. We are a secret committee that has been tasked with setting up a very, very important city, and for the moment we don't know exactly why we're setting it up in this location, only that it is a location with a very low pre-existing population density and access to the Atlantic Ocean. So there are a variety of reasons why this might be an interesting spot to develop. But we do know that some very high-placed people in the European Union and the French government have pushed for some exceptional permissions to be granted to develop a short area of the long coast between Spain and the Médoc in a region called the Landes in southwest France to build a city here. So that will be our objective. And we're going to play this with mods and with everything unlocked, and to begin with an unlimited budget. But then bit by bit we will try to have a balanced budget by 2050. Right now we're in 2025. There's not a lot here right now, which is perfect, giving us plenty of space to develop our city. There is a small outpost here for beachgoers and some people playing beach volley. They look tired. And there's some small restaurants here. Oh no, here they go. And this path up here that brings you to this cliffside location with a view over the mouth of this river here. And just up the road, there's also a community already established, the small village of Sainte-Foy-la-Petite. It's a typical village from the southwest of France with some stone buildings in the center, a church. This is the Gendarmerie Nationale, which is the police force in rural France. And it's also going to serve as a town hall because I couldn't find a better asset. And then you also have these ruins of this castle. And often what would happen is that these fortifications would be dismantled over the centuries as people build new houses in the area or repair existing buildings, because it's a good source of cheap building material. But sometimes there's some ruins left in the village. And on the outside, yes, we have these newer developments like this. A small population, about 600 people. And most of their economy revolves around this service, this gas station and McDonald's restaurant here that are connected to the adjacent highway by this rather cheap interchange, which is normal for a rural community in this area. And this would be the highway going along the coast up from Spain towards the city of Bordeaux. There's also a train line that runs parallel to this highway. At the moment, the electricity comes from these free wind turbines. Obviously, in real life, it would be connected to the national grid. But this is good enough for now. And the water is coming from aquifers deep in the limestone, where it's pumped up and stored in water towers like this one. So, one of the first hurdles to overcome is that we have to negotiate with this already existing small community, because obviously if we start developing things further up the coast, there's going to be a huge influx of traffic, which is going to really decrease the quality of life for residents of the village. And so after negotiations, what we've agreed is that if the traffic reaches a bad level, which they will decide on when this is the case, then we must, within a very short time period, provide a new interchange that will connect the city and bypass the village entirely. And of course we can agree to this because we have huge financial backings. And the other negotiation is that we basically cover the budget deficit of this village, allowing them to continue to provide great services like a small clinic, etc. Both of these little seaside restaurants have gone out of business and been abandoned, which is quite sad. You would think there would be enough people interested in working here, but it shouldn't be an issue there. We will be bringing a lot of people in because we'll be bringing builders and engineers in to start laying the foundations. And I would imagine that some of them will have people coming along with them who might be more interested in working in these restaurants than in construction. Maybe. So, we'll see. One reason the restaurants might have been abandoned is because they thought that we were going to develop a large road coming off of this existing road along the coast. But we're not going to be doing this for a few reasons. The first reason are these dunes here. And dunes, they move and they tend to bury roads with every time there's a strong wind, etc. And also sandy ground, uneven ground is not a great place to build a road. And you're going to have subsidence and different maintenance problems. The best is actually to use the natural protection of these trees, build a little bit more inland, and keep these trees and the tree line holding the dunes back. This is a much smarter way to go about things. And so I think we will designate this whole area, at least in front of the administrative center, as protected. So we're going to drop back a little bit around here. And I think the first thing we can do is build a little camp for the people who come and work here. We want to give them a comfortable place to live, and we want them to be able to rest in a place with not too much noise and not have to commute obviously on the highway or try to find accommodation in a nearby village. So we'll try and set them up something quite nice here, where they'll be also in walking distance from the beaches. Unfortunately, nowhere to get a drink, although maybe some people will buy these places, open them up again, and we'll get some people coming in for, as there's more clients. Because it's always nice to be able to drink a beer on the edge of the beach, and it would be nice not to have to drive all the way to Carrefour to go and get that beer. Okay, so let's try and start building this little area. And for that we can jump into a time lapse. Okay, so I went for a more organic structure to this little area because I thought it'd be a little bit more friendly, a little bit less dehumanizing than having rows and rows of compressed trailers. So I've tried to give everyone some space so that if they play music or make some noise in the evening, they don't bother too much their immediate neighbors. And so people are already settling. Obviously, the game doesn't know that these are trailers meant for people working on the side, so we have this trailer, for example, with 2 adults and 2 teenagers, because why not? I'm sure the teenagers aren't complaining about the living location, although the home size might be a little bit small for a family. These are for workers normally, but well, they're probably holiday asset. The asset's probably for holidays, but yeah, there's even they can even do some sunbathing in their off hours. So I think we've provided some decent accommodation, which will attract some top talent builders and engineers onto this project as we begin. So now we can get started with the construction of the city itself. Good news, 200 people have arrived and we're back in business. So that's fantastic. I hope they enjoy their stay and their weekends. So we're going to start by clearing some forest, not too close to the shore. So we move out like this, clearing here, and then we're going to clear a patch like this, maybe a square or so, kind of square area. Lots of bulldozers, lots of chopping, lots of tearing out roots. You don't see any of this in the game, but it's all happening nonetheless. It's not really a square, but we have some room, some wiggle room there. Right, once we've done that, now we can start bulldozing. So we're going to actually flatten everything to a terrain height of... How high is this? We don't know. But I think I looked into this and I think it's about... If we put... I think we should have it slightly higher than the surrounding area, because like that all the water will drain off of the city. So... Oh, that was a bad mistake. That was not supposed to happen. Oh, hang on a second. I forgot to type in 72 and press enter. Okay, we're fixing this. We're fixing this. Perfect. Right, let's move this out. Bulldoze, bulldoze, bulldoze. Drive in some earth where it's missing. And get this area nice and flat. And slightly elevated above the surrounding landscape as well. Perfect. So I'm not an urbanist and I'm not an expert in this kind of thing at all, but I am very interested in urbanism, especially modern urbanism, ecological design of cities, and trying to move away from car-centric cities. And so that's going to be our goal here in this project. And I've been thinking about a few different ideas. And one idea that I want to consider is having a grid of car lanes, roads, and then the rest of the city above this. And this idea, I got it from a neighborhood in the city I live in, Bordeaux, in the southwest of France. And it's a neighborhood where you have the main walking area is elevated. It's called Mériadec, and the main area is elevated above the streets. So you have cars at the bottom and people walking above. And I think this is nicer than, for example, walking beside the cars or walking beneath the roads. So that's the idea I'm going on, at least for this administrative district. That's the principle that I'd like to work with. And so I think the first step is to establish a grid, because grids are very efficient at distributing traffic. And so we'll have a grid, and then we will build islands between the roads. Okay, so now we have a beautiful base grid, and we can build the city above. So the workers are going to have to come with bulldozers, and well, there seems to be quite a lot of crime here, although we're not so far from the nearest police station. I wonder if the police station is actually functional, or is it just decoration? Oh. 4 criminals in holding cell, 8 police cars in use. Well, they're just completely overwhelmed by the amount of crime happening. obviously we're going to make a small access to the grid that's just been built. It's coming at a 90-degree angle. We can't. Oh, it's okay. Close enough. Close enough. And that will allow the bulldozers to drive along and bring all the earth and, well, like trucks and bulldozers and all of this. And we're going to set everything to 80. So it's 8 meters higher than the rest. We're going to have to clean up the surrounding area there. So you see, you can just fill them in and make these perfect little squares here. That looks quite nice. And we can imagine that they're also going to plant things into the edge here to hold the squares in place. I was going to say spray it with concrete, but not only does this not absorb any water and send everything straight onto the roads, even though they will normally drain out into the surrounding landscape, it also will not look very nice. It won't be good for heat. You know, vegetation reduces heat accumulation in cities. So there's a... Oh, did I not just enter? Oh, okay, here we go. We're going to try and clean up a little bit around our road network so that it just blends in naturally with the surrounding environment. Okay. And this square I have damaged, so let's try and fix that. Oh no, 80. Yep, up. Okay. We don't have to be absolutely perfect. They are made of earth. What a wonderful basis for this administrative center to be built on. We're going to be building with the in the style, the eco style from the vanilla game, mostly, plus some assets that I've downloaded from the workshop. And so we have to start by defining this district so that we can say that all the buildings need to be self-sufficient. Okay, so we have our eco city administrative district, and we can then say that we want it to be self-sufficient housing buildings. And I think the central square should be a park. I think today we're going to start with these first 3, and then we can maybe showcase this to the government, to representatives from the European Union, to gather further support to our project. Oh no, they've gone out of business again. That is quite unfortunate. It seems to be very difficult, and people seem to be more busy dealing with the super high crime rate. Oh dear. Then they are going to have some drinks by the sea. I guess they have been very busy. Maybe they were too busy to go and have drinks. Now, before we get started, there's a few things we have to deal with concerning this grid. Because as you see, Cities Skylines likes to put traffic lights everywhere. And that simply is not the most effective. So I think what we're going to do instead is just have these 2 roads. Which one should be dominant? Actually, I think long term the connection is going to come from this side. Yeah, it's the same thing. So these 2 roads need to be dominant over these roads here. So let's look a little bit closer at how this is working. So we can already start turning off traffic lights, because traffic lights, unless they're necessary, they really do slow things down if there's not much traffic. So we will maybe add them back if we think we need to. But okay. So I think this is going to be main. This is going to be main. Here. This is actually going to be dominant in this case, on this edge here. The other thing is, how do we get up onto the platforms? Especially because the speeds are going to be quite reduced. Okay, so we're going for this kind of design, where we have some ramps going up here, and then bridges that go between each island. And to establish these bridges, we go no higher than 3 meters up. So the slope should be decent for people on bikes. Still one here too. Okay, so now we've set up the basic framework for the administrative district. And this has been quite expensive, so I think it's about time we draw in some private investors, start zoning, and get some activity going here, so that we have something to show when we have representatives come to see what we spent all their hundreds of millions of euros on. Actually, I've just decided I'm going to add some pedestrian paths running through the middle of each of our squares, because I think it will be nice for people walking in the area, and it will give access to these squares. Here in the middle, it'll be a little bit different. Okay. I'm going to try and maintain little park areas in the middle. That's water connected up, and now for electricity. Okay, maybe we'll run that along here to begin with. We can remove that later on. Here we go. People are moving in. Shops are being set up. We have here. Okay. Nice residential buildings being constructed. So you see you have this network of fantastic bicycle-friendly roads and footpaths, and each island is then protected from the street. I think it's pretty nice. Oh dear, something has happened. The little stand has become a tall building. What is this? Grand Hotel. Yeah, we're going to pretend that the Grand Hotel doesn't exist, because that wasn't supposed to happen. And we're going to put this back, and we're going to define it as historical to avoid this happening again. These people actually are just driving along the footpath. I didn't know that was allowed. Campervan. Yeah. That is really bad for these wooden walkways. Oh well. I guess we can't stop them. For the offices, I'm thinking of putting this futuristic green office. I think this is an asset I downloaded. I think this will fit quite nicely in this district. Let's see how that goes. And maybe we can find a smaller office building to place next to it. Let's see what we have. So we ended up going for this ploppable Rico acid, which I think looks quite nice and goes very well with the modern design of this neighborhood. I'm not so sure about the green building. It grows trees. Okay, that is pretty cool. We'll see how it goes. We'll think about it. It does have trees on it. Definitely want to be eco-friendly in this new city. And I've just set up these little solar greenhouses which act as fantastic bridges to transmit electricity. So now we can get rid of this ugly electric line along the back here. Okay. Maybe even if I set up another one here, it's quite discreet. On the edge of the road. Maybe not quite. Maybe down here instead? Yes. Okay. Then we can even get rid of okay. We have problems emerging in the village. We have multiple problems. Not enough services. Not enough workers. They need 40 workers. They need 300 workers. And mostly highly educated. So that's normal that we're missing highly educated people for the moment. What we also need is security. There's crime also here. And the existing police station in the village doesn't seem to be able to provide us with what we need. And so we need to set up some services. And I think a good location to set up the services is here, because you have this kind of central access straight up into the community. So I'm thinking a small police station here. And a small fire service here. For the hospital we'll see a bit later, because we will build a proper hospital. But for now we need to focus on the upcoming visit of our elected representatives and make sure we do some additional work on the landscaping, so that they get a proper idea of what this city is all about in terms of quality of life, of protection of the environment, and all this kind of thing. So I think we should start work immediately on trying to finish, or at least almost finish, these squares here. Okay, so we have finished planting around our new, the first 3 blocks of our new administrative center. And we're now waiting for a visit from some very important government representatives to know if we're going to get more funding on this project. And most things are going quite well. One issue is that the main office building has been abandoned. It still looks okay, but this is not ideal because we want to sell this as an economically beneficial thing, something that's going to bring a lot of money into the area. And if we already have abandoned office buildings, even though it's because there's a lack of highly educated people in the area, they might be put off from this project. But in any case, the garden and oh look, 2 bookstores face to face. How nice. I mean, maybe there's the same bookstore and they bought the other side to store all of the books. And you have a little park in the middle of each neighborhood and very little traffic. But we're going to actually go into the traffic management now, and we're going to look at the speed of cars and make sure that it's never faster for cars to come here than up here than it is for them to drive down below. So that's the next step. Okay, so let's look at speed limits. And you see, this is not good because we have 40 going into the residential districts, and the roads connecting districts are limited to 50. So what we need to do is we need to up these roads down here to 70, and we will lower the roads up here to 20, which is very slow, but at the same time, this will ensure that the atmosphere in the neighborhoods is very calm. And you don't have to drive very far if you're coming up here. Okay, so now we set the speeds, at least in the areas that we are currently occupying. And in the meantime, that tower despawned and now something else is spawning. But we want to maybe not have that. Let's see what it builds. We'll pretend this is just a planning phase. I'll speed things up a bit. Yeah, I'm not sure that's exactly the look we were going for. Oh, it does have like quite a nice rooftop situation, but I don't think this is the style we're looking for in this area. How many people does this employ? 210 people. Yeah, they're not going to find these people. I think we can get rid of this and just leave the spot empty. We'll say nothing was built here. We'll dezone it for now. And so we'll say that there's a tower planned to be here. So we are receiving a visit from very important representatives and politicians. And how this works is when I have these kind of random events for the story, I'm going to add an analogical layer to this digital game and roll a dice. And the dice will determine the outcome of the meeting. So the higher the dice roll, the better the outcome. So here, for example, if I roll a 1, then we will actually lose funding for the city and we'll have to very quickly become self-sufficient from a financial perspective. On the other hand, if I roll a 6, for example, then we will continue to receive a lot of support and we'll be able to continue building without having to develop more economic infrastructure. And it turns out that I rolled here a 5, which is pretty good, which means the demands are going to be very minimal. So we had a very good meeting and they're giving us the go-ahead. They really loved what we built so far. And we're going to be able to continue this area and build out some new things without having to start developing industry straight away. So we might have to develop some kind of industry anyway to provide jobs and continue to attract people, but we can also focus on education and housing too. I think that's it for this episode. We're going to leave with the pouring rain And next episode we'll pick up and continue building out this administrative district. The rain is finally cleared. Just to also note that I'm not an expert in Cities Skylines in any way. I'm relatively new to the game. I have played about 100 hours. So if you see anything that I seem to be doing wrong or that I've misunderstood, please tell me, because I'm trying to learn. So that would be great. Until next time.